My name is Megan Carter. This year, I'll be turning 40. I work as a doctor at a hospital and lead a very hectic life. My husband's name is Nate. Our daughter's name is Daisy. This new school year, I was chosen to serve as a PTA officer at Daisy's elementary school. However, since I'm so busy with work, I asked my husband to take on the role instead. It seems that having a dad, which is essentially a father figure, was quite appreciated, and Nate eagerly got involved in PTA activities. Well, the reason he seemed so enthusiastic wasn't exactly because of the PTA itself.
An entrepreneur doctor husband with a $250,000 annual income? Oh, he's all mine. By the way, Nate, who's lying here next to me right now, says I'm a way better match for him. So, you might as well say goodbye and enjoy your single life with your daughter. Pathetic, isn't it?
If you're okay with my husband, feel free to take him. Nate was having an affair with the most difficult member of the PTA, the so-called Queen Bee. Responding to her smug attempt to assert dominance, I replied in an exasperated tone.
That's hilarious. Sounds like the desperate yapping of a loser.
For some reason, the Queen Bee kept laughing obnoxiously with a coarse, vulgar chuckle. Since I was truly fed up, I hung up the phone without hesitation. What idiots! Both my husband and the Queen Bee. I decided to take revenge quickly. The stage for my revenge. The PTA general meeting scheduled a few weeks later. In front of some fairly prominent members of the school board and others I opened with. So, just to clarify, I'm the one who's a doctor. He's pretty much just like a janitor in my house. As for that $250,000 annual income, what kind of misunderstanding is that?
What?
The Queen Bee stood there stunned, while Nate looked like the blood had drained from his face. This was just the beginning. My stage of revenge had only just begun. The Queen Bee's name is Sally Woods. She's 37 years old. She moved to this town last December. Her daughter, Kylie, is in 6th grade and is experiencing her first spring after transferring schools. Queen Bee is just a nickname, but don't worry that it sounds like something elementary school kids would come up with to tease someone. But she earned it fair and square. Right after becoming PTA president, she boldly declared,
From now on, I'll be the top dog among all the parents with kids at this school.
her loud proclamation earned quiet disdain from everyone around her. Needless to say, people use the nickname Queen Bee more as a jab than a term of endearment or respect. These days, PTA activities often carry a negative image. Amid such perceptions, Sally stepped up as someone who had just moved and was completely new to the PTA.
What? There's no PTA president? That's unacceptable. Who's supposed to be in charge? Don't you know how much PTA activities impact the kids? We need to decide on someone immediately.
Well, Sally, while I understand your concerns, most key roles are already assigned, or the remaining candidates have already declined. Picking someone right away will be tough.
Well, you'll just have to force someone to do it. Honestly, I'll do it myself if I have to. I'll be this school's PTA president.
Wait, what? But Sally, you just transferred here. You don't even know much about the school yet. Plus, aren't you a single mom? Won't work keep you busy? It might not be fair to ask you to take on such a big role.
No problem at all. Don't underestimate me. Back at my daughter's old school, I was a PTA officer for years. I know how it all works. Sure, I'm new here, but I'm quick on my feet. It'll be fine, trust me. Oh, and I don't have a job, so no worries there.
Wait, you're not working? Then, how do you make a living?
Oh, that's the best part. My ex-husband sends me monthly payments to cover my expenses. I don't even need to work. He's not that wealthy, but he loves trying to show off for me. What an idiot. Such a convenient ATM, don't you think? And I'm not worried about my daughter either. She's already in 6th grade. She can handle herself, right? So, don't worry, leave it to me.
Apparently, after a conversation like this, she was unanimously handed the PTA president title. I heard all of this from some fellow PTA moms who were present. Initially, Sally was somewhat appreciated for willingly stepping up as PTA president, but that sentiment didn't last long. Once the actual PTA activities began, her true colors gradually came to light. While I only exchanged greetings with her occasionally, I still heard plenty from other PTA moms about Sally's performance.
I just can't believe it. That woman.
Hey, calling her that woman isn't nice. You should address her properly as the queen bee, just like she wants.
Calling her that woman is more than enough. She's so infuriating. I can't believe I actually thought we were lucky to have her at first. If I knew it would turn out like this, I would have taken the president's role myself, no matter how much I didn't want to.
You seem really worked up. Is the queen bee that bad?
Bad? Oh, she's beyond bad. Total chaos. I didn't think people like her actually existed outside of the internet. She's a walking disaster.
Exactly. It's like an encounter of the third kind. She loves to take charge in meetings, but the moment we voice our opinions, she picks at every single thing with snide remarks. If her ideas don't get accepted, she throws a tantrum. Even elementary school kids have more patience than that. And then, when we finally agree with her just to keep the peace, she gets all cocky and starts mocking us. Plus, she doesn't even bother to help with the events she suggests. We're stuck doing all the work. And if we don't do things her way, she complains. Why can't you handle a simple task like understanding my suggestions? Oh well, I guess it can't be helped since you're just a bunch of airheaded housewives who only know how to do chores. She even snickers while saying it. It's infuriating. On top of that, she sucks up to the dads like crazy. She's absolutely shameless.
Yeah, it's really something. And she acts like being single somehow makes it okay. Never mind the fact that most of the dads are married. Some of them are even charmed by her fake sweetness.
My husband's one of them. He's practically part of her entourage. Even when I try to explain what she's really like, he scolds me, saying, "That's not who she is. Stop saying such mean things. You're just jealous because she's pretty." It's so frustrating. I'm not jealous at all, and he's completely wrong. I'm done with him.
Luckily, my husband found her fake sweet voice creepy from the start and kept his distance. Maybe she gives up when she realizes someone's not going to fall for her. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, I think your husband, Nate, might be caught up in her nonsense too.
Oh, is that so?
Is that so, you say? Well, I guess knowing your situation, I can see why you wouldn't care. But it was pretty blatant, honestly. Not just suspicious, it was downright obvious.
Yeah, I've been wondering, is Nate her real target? I mean, either he's lying or the queen bee is delusional. But I've heard her saying he's a doctor and makes over $200,000 a year. Pretty wild claims, right?
Wow, that's quite a lie. Well, I've got it under control. I plan to handle Nate myself, so don't worry about it.
Got it. So, we're just letting her keep thinking that for now, right?
Yep, thanks. With that, our little mom group meeting ended. By the way, Nate wasn't home today. All I knew was that he was out, but I had no idea where or with whom. Then suddenly, I got a call from his phone. Hello.
Are you Nate's wife? And the mom of Daisy Carter, the fourth grader?
The voice on the other end called out both Nate's and Daisy's names. It sounded vaguely familiar. Yes, that's correct. And you are. Why are you calling from my husband's phone?
Isn't it obvious? I'm calling to tell you to divorce Nate. Aren't you ashamed of clinging to the wife role without considering his feelings? Unbelievable.
Excuse me, and who are you?
Do I really have to spell it out? I'm Sally Woods, PTA president at your daughter's school. The boss. The top dog.
Oh, I see. So you're the infamous one. And why exactly is the PTA president so invested in urging me to divorce my husband? What's your relationship with him? Feigning ignorance, I asked her.
What's my relationship, you ask? You really haven't noticed, have you? Nate and I have been in love ever since we first met.
Uh-huh.
Nate told me all about you. He said you're just a lazy housewife who couldn't even be bothered to do PTA work and dumped it all on him. And even though he's so busy with his work as a doctor, he still finds time to help with PTA activities. And yet, you don't even thank him. You're a useless, ungrateful wife.
Uh-huh.
Is all you can say? Anyway, you're not fit to be Nate's wife. And yet, you use your daughter as an excuse to avoid agreeing to a divorce. He told me how much that frustrates him. That's why I went out of my way to call you, to warn you. You need to divorce Nate right now.
Got it.
What?
The queen bee seemed momentarily stunned by my quick reply. I said, got it. I'll grant your wish and divorce him. The papers are already ready, so no need to worry. Nate's probably with you right now, isn't he? Since he hasn't chimed in during this conversation, I'm guessing he's asleep or something, and I'm sure this call was your idea alone. In that case, feel free to let him know from me. Tell him he doesn't need to come back home anymore because I'll be filing the divorce papers.
What? Fine, whatever. Go file those papers already. This means I've finally snagged myself a doctor husband with a $250,000 salary. You're out of the picture now. Enjoy your sad single life with your daughter, loser.
Uh-huh. If you want my husband that badly, be my guest.
Oh, you're hilarious. Sounds like the desperate whining of a loser. All right, go file those papers right now.
By the way, what's this about an entrepreneur doctor? Shouldn't it be clinic director? Or is he supposedly running both? Somehow the story didn't quite add up. It's surprising that it managed to fool Sally. Well, Sally was probably blinded by the six-figure salary my husband set up in his lies, so it doesn't really matter. Now that she's handed me the perfect opportunity by exposing their affair, it's time for a little payback. And what better stage for it than one befitting her grandeur? The upcoming PTA general meeting, scheduled in a few weeks. I don't know how it works at other schools, but ours holds a PTA general meeting twice a year, where all sorts of discussions take place. This time, even members of the local education board are scheduled to attend for some sort of inspection. It feels like fate is telling me that this is where justice must be served. Good thing I've been quietly preparing for this moment. And just like that, the day of the PTA general meeting arrived. Dressed in a flashy suit, Sally stood boldly with her arms crossed, completely oblivious to the cold stares directed at her from everyone around. I had already spoken to my mom friends and laid the groundwork. Children and adults alike tend to unite when faced with a common enemy. The Queen Bee was hosting the meeting, proudly acting as though all the tasks she had pushed onto the other PTA officers were her personal accomplishments. Next to the Queen Bee stood my husband, his face pale as a sheet. Oh wait, since I've already filed the divorce papers, I suppose he's no longer my husband. When Nate spotted me sitting quietly in a corner, he immediately threw desperate glances my way, silently begging for help. I ignored him completely. Then the moment arrived.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Sally asked, scanning the room with a sickly sweet voice. I raised my hand. Yes, I'm Megan Carter, the mother of Daisy Carter, a fourth grader. May I have a moment?
Fine, what is it?
I'd like to discuss whether you should remain as PTA president or be removed from your position.
What?
Sally looked bewildered at my words. At that moment, the vice president, who had always meekly followed Sally, grabbed the microphone.
Excuse me.
Megan, please come to the podium.
Yes, thank you.
What? Wait, what are you doing? No, I mean, what's going on? You can't just.
Oh, you might as well drop the act now. It's not like you can keep it up much longer. I carried my documents and stepped up to the podium. The room filled with murmurs from parents, teachers, and even the education board members. One of the board members, a man named Kevin Taylor, raised his hand with a puzzled expression.
Excuse me, Dr. Carter, but we weren't informed about this in advance.
Oh, don't worry. I'll hand out materials to everyone right now. Let's all discuss whether Sally Wood should step down as PTA president. My mom friends, who were in on the plan, quickly distributed the materials I had prepared. I turned to Kevin Taylor, the board member who had spoken earlier. Kevin, please don't call me doctor here. It might confuse people.
Oh, right, my apologies. Force of habit.
Noticing the somewhat familiar atmosphere between us, the Queen Bee frowned.
Wait, what? Doctor? What are you talking about? Isn't she just a stay-at-home mom?
What? Stay-at-home mom? Megan, a stay-at-home mom? What are you talking about? She's my wife's physician and a doctor at the General Hospital.
What?
The Queen Bee stood there, dumbfounded. It seemed she couldn't quite process what Kevin had just said. I decided to explain. Oh, Sally, it seems you've misunderstood something. Nate isn't a doctor or anything close to it. He's not a private practitioner, nor is he a SEAL. And of course, he doesn't make $250,000 a year. Were you perhaps confusing him with me?
What?
Well, I'm not a private practitioner, but a physician at a general hospital. My parents, however, are private practitioners, and my family home is a clinic.
What?
And Sally, you've only been saying what over and over again, haven't you? Nate is unemployed, by the way. If I were to give him a job title, let's see. Maybe my personal janitor. But even as a janitor, he's not competent enough to earn any pay, not even pocket money. What's this $250,000 salary misunderstanding about?
What are you saying?
Sally's scream echoed through the room. At that moment, Nate stood up from beside her and rushed toward me on the podium.
Megan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have had an affair. It was just a moment of weakness. Please forgive me. I'm begging you.
Wow, so noisy. Is there a bug flying around? As Nate shouted his apologies, a few supportive dads from the audience came out, grabbed him by the arms, and dragged him to the wall. Sally, with a stunned expression, watched the scene unfold. That's when the projector I had set up began displaying the materials. Now, let me explain why I proposed the removal of Sally Woods as PTA president. In short, she had an affair with my husband. Therefore, I believe she is unfit to continue as PTA president.
An affair.
The murmurs grew louder at the mention of the word affair. The projector started showing photos and even videos as evidence.
Wait. Stop it. Turn it off.
Somewhere in the room, a scream rang out. It was no surprise. Most of the images and footage showed Sally and Nate using an empty school classroom as their personal love hotel. The teachers who had cooperated with me, along with the education board members, frowned deeply at the inappropriate behavior.
How could something so disgraceful happen in a sacred place of learning?
This isn't what it looks like. It's fabricated. Those are fake. With today's AI and editing tools, anyone could create something like this. Someone's trying to frame me.
Oh, Sally, didn't you know? This school has discrete surveillance cameras installed all over the place as part of a digital initiative. Of course, they respect student privacy. They're primarily there for security reasons. The footage might be a bit grainy, but your faces are clear enough to recognize, wouldn't you say?
What is this? No one told me about this.
I believe it was communicated to everyone. Perhaps you just weren't paying attention. The photos, on the other hand, were collected thanks to the investigative efforts of my mom friends. Hungry for some excitement, they had enthusiastically volunteered. Truly, I couldn't ask for better friends. I'd have to properly thank them later. I was selected as a PTA officer, but due to my busy schedule, I asked my husband to take on the role instead. Shortly before that, he had caused trouble at work and was fired. Since then, he'd been lazing around at home, not looking for a new job. Aside from the occasional day job, he spent his days idling. I thought he could at least handle PTA work, or rather, I needed him to. So I asked him to take over. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that would lead to his affair with Sally.
What? That's not true. Nate told me you forced all the PTA work onto him. He said you were the one lazing around every day.
No, that's not the case at all. Oh, by the way, would you like to know why Nate got fired? He tried to hit on the daughter of a major company's CEO and almost got sued. The company decided to fire him and disassociate themselves from him entirely, which settled the issue. But as a result, he was personally sued for damages.
What?
At that point, I considered divorcing him, but I thought someone needed to monitor him to ensure he paid off the damages, so I stayed in the marriage. Looking back now, after his affair with you came to light, I realized it was all a waste. I should have divorced him right away instead of feeling responsible for his messes. When I glanced at Nate, he was sitting with his head hung low, his face streaked with tears and snot. There was no longer a place for him in our home. My daughter had already told him to stay at least 10 feet away from her, and our conversations were purely out of obligation. In such a situation, perhaps it was natural for him to seek comfort elsewhere. After the initial shock of discovering Nate's actions, I had wanted to believe in him, and not abandon him. But now I no longer felt even a shred of such sentiments.
Stop lying. And anyway, doesn't this mean your marriage was already broken? If that's the case, you can't blame us for having a relationship.
Legally speaking, we were still married, and Nate knew full well that my feelings had turned away from him. If he truly had a connection with you, he would have initiated a divorce himself, but he didn't. Instead, he fed you lies to make himself look better. Do you understand what that means? Nate wanted to have the best of both worlds. He only wanted to enjoy the good parts of life. If we divorced, I would undoubtedly demand alimony and child support from both Nate and you. Nate doesn't have the money, so he wanted to avoid that. Also, though our home wasn't comfortable for him, it was still a safe place to stay. Naturally, he couldn't count on someone else to house him forever. But he also couldn't move in with you, especially since you think he's a doctor earning $250,000 a year. Actually, you might have ended up moving in with him instead. And if that happened, all the lies he's told you would come to light. So he chose to maintain the status quo, continuing to hide the affair from me and lying to you. This is dishonest to both of us. To Nate, you're just someone he can treat as disposable. That's the kind of person you are to him.
What? You're mocking me. Calling me disposable? Are you kidding me? I've done so much.
The queen bee let out a scream. Her face twisted into such an ugly expression that it was almost unbearable to look at. Everyone around her recoiled in discomfort. By the way, weren't you giving Nate money as well? Didn't you find it odd? He's supposedly a doctor earning $250,000 a year, yet he's asking you for money.
Shut up. He said all his earnings were managed by you and that he didn't have any spending money of his own. I just felt sorry for him.
Oh, I see. That was another one of his lies, wasn't it? I sighed. At that moment, another person made their entrance.
Sally, I've heard everything. You've been neglecting Kylie and chasing after some man?
What? How are you here?
I invited him. He said he had something he wanted to say. The man who appeared was Sally's ex-husband, John. All eyes turned toward him.
When Megan reached out to me, I didn't know what to expect. But you've been using the child support I send to spoil other men, haven't you? I talked to Kylie. She said you're rarely home and hardly ever come back. She told me there are times when you leave no money or food, and school lunch ends up being her only meal of the day.
John's words created an air of shock with people whispering.
What are you talking about? The money is mine. I can spend it however I want. Besides, Kylie is small. School lunch is more than enough for her. You only send money to make yourself look good, so stop acting high and mighty.
Oh, by the way, about your ex-husband. Did you know he's the CEO of a company? Surely you've heard of him. He's the one who developed the tablets and educational apps the school uses. So, I don't think his child support payments are about showing off.
What?
You didn't understand anything, did you? I always thought it was partly my fault you left, thinking that my obsession with work made me neglect you. Even when you said I was boring to be around, I thought it couldn't be helped. So at the very least, I made sure to send enough money for you and Kylie to live comfortably. But you didn't even use it for her.
John glared at Sally with fury. The queen bee's face turned ghostly pale. It seemed she was only now realizing just how big of a fish she had let slip away.
This isn't what I meant. I was just Being a single mom is harder than I thought, and I was lonely.
She tried to draw sympathy, but all she received were cold stares. And so, from the perspective of someone who cannot take care of her own child and only thinks of herself, I proposed Sally Woods be removed as PTA president. I stated calmly, stepping down from the podium. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Everyone assumed the next step would be to vote on her removal. But that wasn't the end.
Next, I, the Vice President, Mary Johnson, would like to speak about Sally's abusive behavior and her affair with my husband.
What?
Somewhere, Nate, whose face was a mess of tears and snot, let out a bewildered sound. Yes, Sally hadn't just been involved with Nate. John had mentioned earlier other men. Sally, looking terrified, glanced at Mary as she took the podium. To ensure she couldn't escape, my mom friends stood on either side of her, blocking the exits. This was just the beginning of her reckoning. One after another, people came forward to testify about the damage Sally had caused. As expected, a motion to remove her as PTA president was proposed, and she was officially ousted. Incidentally, the new PTA president turned out to be the former Queen Bee, who returned after recovering from her surgery. And as for who performed that surgery, it was none other than me. Sally eventually fled town, unable to bear the cold stares and pressure from those around her, leaving John and their daughter Kylie behind to fight for custody. As a result, custody of their daughter was almost automatically awarded to John Carter. At her request, Kylie continued attending the same school without transferring. Now, as for the whereabouts of Sally, who fled the town, this is all rumor-level information. During this scandal, it was revealed that Sally had been involved with approximately 15 men. Out of those, 6 marriages ended in divorce. The 6 divorced men, refusing to take responsibility for their actions, instead turned their resentment towards Sally. In other words, they found a common enemy. They obsessively tracked down Sally, forcing her to sell her organs to make money or compelling her into degrading work. In any case, it seems she has become a daily tool for them to vent their frustrations. It's said that they even took out a life insurance policy on her, ensuring they could profit off her death. If true, this is criminal and terrifying, but it's no longer my concern. For someone like Sally, who loved manipulating men, perhaps this is the fitting end to her story. As for my ex-husband, he's now being managed at my family's clinic, where he's reportedly being worked to the bone. I've heard he's occasionally sent to help with labor at a relative's factory or farm. Alimony and child support are deducted directly from his wages. With the opportunity to work 72-hour weeks, I'm sure he's feeling deeply grateful to me. Meanwhile, I'm happily chatting with my mom friends as usual. By next year, my work schedule will calm down a bit, and I plan to fully participate in PTA activities then.